Good morning. This is the Blaine's World podcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. You can also listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And you can also get more information at the website, www.blainesworld.net. I'm here at my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce my two guests today. And they are, let's see, I'm at a disadvantage here, but they are Hank Eder, and I'll introduce you to him in a second. And Tyler, your last name again is?
Lewis.
Tyler Lewis. And if you want, guys, wave to all your friends and friends who are watching this on Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever. That's Hank and Tyler. And I should mention a little bit about Hank, who's a friend of mine. And Hank is a PR marketing specialist in Western North Carolina. He has background in journalism, graphics, design, marketing, PR, and much more. And he's the chief instigator, I love that, Hank, of the Home Business Community, an online membership support group for home business entrepreneurs. You also host a show on Biz Radio, as you can see, the Home Business Show. And he's a really good guy, knows a lot about business. I'm at a disadvantage, Tyler, in that I'm just meeting you now for the first time today. So I'll give you, next 2 or 3 hours to give a brief introduction about who you are. So Tyler Lewis, what's your background with respect to business in terms of starting a business?
So I'm an entrepreneur and author, and I wrote a book called Word to Self. And Word to Self is a book about powerful statements to help reshape how you think about yourself in life using affirmations. And I'm really big on the mind and reshaping the mind and how the mind is connected to the life. So I really designed this book to help people, change their mind so that they can change their life. I'm also a member of the Black Wall Street cohort here in Asheville. I'm also the leading ambassador for Black Wall Street Junior in Asheville. And I have a podcast as well called Mindcast Life. And on my podcast, I talk about, strategies and life-changing things that you can do in your life to help change the way you think, to help change your mind. That's pretty much what I do.
In terms of doing all this different stuff, Tyler, you grew up where?
I grew up in Asheville.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when you growing up in Asheville, did you always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Yes, I actually did. I always wanted to start my own business. At a younger age, I wasn't fully, aware of what that is and how that looked like. But I was like, I want to have my own business. I want to be my own boss. Like that's just where my head was at that time.
Do you remember your first business did you ever start a small business?
No, I never had a business before until now. But before was like, doing the little, in your neighborhood, you have like the candy lady and stuff. I was kind of like the candy boy. Like I'll ask my parents if I can get some, candy boxes, and then I'll sell them out into the community.
Do you still have the first dollar you ever made, and you frame it anywhere?
No, I don't.
Okay, very, very cool. And if I can ask you, which is kind of surprising to maybe some folks, you're how old, if I can ask?
I'm 19.
Okay, very cool. And to get this off the ground at the age of 19, write a book, I'm impressed. And we'll talk about the book in a second. Hank, I won't put you on the spot and ask how old you are, but same kind of thing. If you can kind of give a summary, I've known you for several years now as this marketing PR guru of mine. How did you get into that business?
Well, before I say that, I just want to say I am very impressed that at 19, Tyler has written a book and is an entrepreneur, because at 19, I was just chasing after hippie girls,
And you still are,
Yeah. Well, no, my wife keeps me from doing that. But
okay, well, we won't mention that. But anyway, so, Hank, how did you get into the PR field?
Well, I was influenced by a cousin of mine when I was very young. She was an advertising copywriter in New York City for a pretty well-known agency called Doyle, Dane and Bernbach. And I didn't know at the time what an advertising copywriter was, but I really admired my cousin Carol. And I knew I wanted to go into something that had to do with writing. And I used to write short stories as a little kid and send them to Carol, and she'd critique them gently, of course. And over the years, I went into journalism as a major in college, and I graduated from the University of Florida with a degree in journalism. I worked for newspapers for a time. I even spent a brief stint at the Miami Herald when it first branched out to have neighborhood sections. One was called Neighbors, and the very first section of the Miami Herald called Neighbors was in an area called Coral Gables, Florida, and I was a part of the staff of that. Prior to that, I had been with a Night Ridder newspaper that was owned by the Miami Herald, so they just kind of shimmied us all in there. Then as the years went by, I kind of moved out of journalism, moved into, at first I was in graphics design, then I worked for ad agencies, a PR agency, marketing agencies, and then in a flight of temporary insanity, when I was about 38, I decided I wanted to give back to the world, and I became a public school teacher. I did that for 16 years. I taught 8th grade for 16 years and came out of it semi-sane. I can't claim full sanity. But yeah, then when I left that, I went back to my roots and said, you know, I've got all these various skills that I picked up along the way. So why don't I put this Hank Eder PR and marketing together? And I originally thought I'd go in doing writing, mostly blogs, newsletters, writing for the web, stuff like that. And then people started asking me to build websites for them. So I started building websites for them, and well, the rest is all history.
And one of the kinds of things I've admired about you, Hank, is that to pick up a lot of these skills, you just kind of picked them up on your own. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, you know, in this day and age, and this is something maybe that because we're going to get into eventually this notion of boomers and Gen Z, but in this day and age, one of the advantages that we have is this digital information world. And when I wanted to learn how to build websites, I originally had a girl who built them for me, you know, and I would charge for a website package. But when she had to leave, I then had to go in and service the sites that we had already built. And then because of the beauty of the information world, I got on, and you can learn to do most everything on YouTube. So I pretty much learned how to build WordPress related sites. And my first sites were pretty darn clunky, but over time I've gotten pretty good at doing WordPress based sites. And I do full shopping carts, you know, multiple products, all that kind of stuff. But my great love is still writing. And given my druthers, I would rather take on more writing projects than more website projects.
Now, let me ask Tyler the same question. In terms of your learning stuff, what you did, I mean, that's pretty cool to write a book, to start a business. Talk about your learning process. What are some things you did to pick up this information?
So I'm definitely pretty new at this. Like I just started like at least like I'll say a year ago on just this whole entrepreneur journey and then writing a book and all this. It's really started for me like a year ago. And where I really picked up this knowledge and just this information is one from leadership and then also from my own personal experiences. Because dealing with the mind is something very personal. It's a personal thing that we all have, which is a mind. So a lot of the information that I have acquired was coming from personal experiences and also just personal reflection of my own mind, because I've learned that we're not really different in the sense of how the world is trying to portray that we have all these differences, but we really have more commonalities than we have differences. So I just took the information from my reflection on myself and really just implemented that into books and just the rest of the knowledge and services and like my podcast of things that I talk about dealing with the mind and how people think. And but yeah, that's really where I really started was really from just reflecting on my own experiences and just doing my own seeking and diving for information and truth. Because one thing about me before like all of this, I was what people call a truth seeker. I was going in depth with UFOs, Illuminati, all this other stuff. Like I was just out there. I was just going in because I had this desire in me to want to know, to want to learn. So in doing that, I started to know and learn more about myself. And in doing that, I started to learn more and more about other people and how we are common, and how our mind is the center of everything. So, but yeah, that's really where it all started for me.
What gave you the idea to write a book?
It really came from me just seeing what I can give back to people. It's like I found, well, really it came from me finding something that helped me. So if I was like, okay, if affirmations, if changing the way that I think and speak to myself help me get to where I am now and where I'm going, I know that it can help other people. And that knowing comes from, again, the commonality that we have. We're really not different. We all want to be successful. We all want to be prosperous. We all want to live in abundance. These are common traits. So when I decided to create my book around affirmations, it's solely around thinking and speaking those things to yourself. So if you think and you speak to yourself, affirmation in my book is I'm powerful. If you keep saying that to yourself, eventually it's going to get down into your belief system. And whatever we believe, we trust. So when you trust that you are powerful, then that means the actions or what you do are leading to more powerful things. So you may speak more powerfully, you may do or accomplish something that is more powerful, or you may talk to other people and encourage them in a more powerful way. It all translates. So that's really where it started for me, is just seeing what helped me and wanting to use that to help other people.
For the benefit of both Hank and me, talk a little bit about the process. Is this something you got up every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning and wrote for 3 hours, or how do you get to the point where it was an idea in your head till you put it down in writing?
So it really just came out of me like water. Like, it only took me 3 months to finish and write this book. 3 months, that's it. And I think it just came from just my clear understanding of what I wanted to give and what I believe will help people. And it really was just an easy process for me to just write everything down and set it up. But for like the process part, it really just started with just affirmations that I said to myself. And all the affirmations in my book are things that I say to myself on a daily basis, or that I say to myself in my mind on a daily basis. So I just wrote all those affirmations down in the book, and there's 64 of them. And I wrote them all down in the book, and then I just put a little exercise next to it, and I kind of designed it in a little devotional way, so that you can write down your thoughts, like the thoughts that you are thinking while saying to yourself. So that's just the reflection part. But yeah, that's really how it all came about. It really wasn't a difficult process, in my opinion, but it was definitely a process.
And the name of the book is what?
Word to Self.
And if people want to get it, how do they get it?
My book is on Amazon right now. And also, if you're in the Asheville area, I have my book in a brick and mortar called Grind ABL. It's the only Black-owned coffee shop here in Asheville right now. And I have my books in there as well. But if you go on Amazon and look up Word to Self by Tyler Miles Lewis, my book will be the first book on there. So
fantastic. And Hank, I'll ask you a little question in terms of how did you first meet this guy?
Well, he was recommended to me by Steve Jenks of Incredible Towns.
Okay.
As a person who would be great to do as, to have as a radio guest, as a show guest. And it really was quite a show that we did together. And I enjoyed our conversation so much. And we touched on the fact that, we're basically several generations apart, and yet we see things in very similar ways, which is, that's life affirming to me, that we can reach across the divide and find our commonalities. Like Tyler was saying a few moments ago, the commonalities are more important. But then we got into part of the the show, we talked a little bit about his book. We talked about his role as an entrepreneur, but then we started talking about what are some of the ways we could bridge the gap between boomers and Gen Z, because there's so many stereotypes and things out there that are meant to divide us. You know, you go on to any social media, and on a daily basis, you'll see stereotypes about either boomers or Gen Z. So then we came up with the notion, hey, let's have this discussion that's coming up on February 21st at the Focal Point Coworking in Asheville, uh, about bridging the generation gap between boomers and Gen Z.
And
So
by the way, I just find it hard to believe, though, something you said, that you said there's a difference between the two of you, like an age or something. I find that hard to believe. And so I should ask you, which category do you fit yourself in?
Well, I would like to think I'm kind of multi-generational, because I don't necessarily ascribe a set of beliefs that can be hardwired into any of the generations. Because as Tyler said, I've always been a seeker too, and some of the things that he's researched, he mentioned UFOs, Illuminati, stuff like that. I was researching that stuff back in the mid to late 70s. So, you know, we've got that in common too. One of my favorite authors in those days was a man named Robert Anton Wilson, who wrote a lot about conspiracy yarn. He taught us a lot about conspiracies too. But the thing that I took away from that is that whenever you think you really have your handle on a conspiracy, you've wrapped your brain around it, you're probably receiving the red herrings that they've put out there to really lead you off the path of what truth probably is somewhere along the way. Yeah, so you know, we've got these commonalities, and I'm looking forward over time. I mean, we're going to do this discussion in a few weeks, but I'm looking forward over time to continuing to develop this friendship that I've found with Tyler.
I think you're still with us, right, Tyler? Can you hear us? Okay, there he is.
Yes, I'm
Okay, great. If we lose you, at least you can hear us. That's great. Let me ask you, Tyler, the same kind of question. I'll ask it both ways. In terms of differences, not necessarily with Hank, but just in terms of other people you've come into contact, do you see differences between the ages, and how would you describe them?
So like differences between ages between Gen Z and
Right.
boomers.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obviously vast differences. I mean, Gen Z is more around my age, and boomers is more around the ages between like 35 and a little bit up. So, but
Probably
I'll
even more
say,
than that.
yeah,
More
probably
than that,
more than that, probably like in the 50s, really.
yeah.
But the differences, I mean, that's really the differences. It's just the age difference. I think a difference in, well, my thing is, I was actually thinking about this before I came on here, is the category, or how they, you know, how they explain boomers and Gen Z. But the way I was looking at it, because my whole thing is mindset, I was looking at it from the standpoint of, these are two different types of minds. These are two different types of way of thinking. So the way a boomer thinks is different than the way a Gen Z thinks. And the way a Gen Z thinks is different from the way a boomer thinks. And I started to realize that in dispensations in time, because that's what a boomer is. It is a person in a different dispensation in time, and born in a different dispensation in time. Same with the Gen Z. Is in these different dispensations and times are different types of way of thinking. Because now in the Gen Z era, in my generation, there's a whole lot more information. There's a whole lot more things you can learn, things that are more available and accessible. And in the boomer time, that it's the total opposite. So I really see that difference there. But I also see the commonality. Sorry, that that Hank was talking about, is like how we are still, how that same mindset is still there to seek information, seek truth. Because like the commonality is me and Hank, we seek truth. We were into UFOs and conspiracy theories and things like that. And that's a commonality that I see between Gen Zs and boomers, is and that's just one commonality. Another commonality is the work ethic. I think it's a little bit different for boomers though, because from my experiences, and I think y'all can vouch for me, is that y'all really value, or y'all really know what it takes to get something done. And in my era, it's kind of a little bit more procrastination. Um, but I'll say that's really where the commonality happens, is when we understand the same concepts.
Let me ask Hank the same kind of question, but we'll first of all, let's focus on the differences initially. So
Okay.
between, if not difference between Hank, you and Tyler, differences just in terms of other folks you've observed. Hank, to his credit, has worked with a lot of different folks and a lot of different environments. Do you see any differences, Hank?
Well, yeah, there are differences in just the basic mindset, I think, of boomers and Gen Z. And, first, let's look past some of the stereotypes. The stereotypes that are out there is that, you see Gen Z people on social media saying that, the boomers are they're the ones who will yell at you for being on their lawn. They have that okay boomer kind of thing. And they look at us kind of as old fat cats, who are out of touch with the world and want to just boss everybody around and tell everybody how to do things. And then the boomers see the Gen Z. I mean, this is the stereotype, not the way I see it, but they see the Gen Z. You hear that ridiculous statement that, all these guys are living in their mother's basement, and she's paying all the bills, but they're playing video games all day. But they're not. They're starting businesses, at 19, like Tyler. They understand that the world is not, I'm going to go to work for a company like, a big Fortune 500 company that's going to take care of me all my life if I just work hard for them. That kind of thing, that boat has already sailed. There's not that kind of mutual loyalty between companies and employees like there were back in the day. Another thing I'll point out is, just the times that we grew up in. I was born the same year that Brown versus the Board of Education began the process of integrating public schools. And as I was a junior high school student and the busing thing started and we all had to start getting to know each other, I mean, guys from different neighborhoods never saw each other before. I lived in Miami Beach. We didn't know what was going on across the causeway, you know what I mean? And the folks across the causeway, they didn't know what was going on in Miami Beach. So we had to get past the culture shock and then try to get to know each other individually. Whereas I think now, and Tyler can probably tell a little bit more about this, but I think now in the age that the Gen Z have grown up in, they don't see it the same way like we do. We used to see color as being, more of an obstacle than the Gen Z see it today. It's not color that's the obstacle, it's attitudes. Am I right, Tyler?
No, you're absolutely right. I think in today's age, what my generation is, we're really starting to push away that ideology that there's that that you can judge somebody based on the color of their skin, and that's dealing with like racism and all that other stuff. But I think we understand what a person is, and a person is their character. So I think the more and more in my generation, we judge people by the content of their character, kind of like what Martin Luther King said. It's like we judge people based on what they show themselves to be, not based on their type of skin color or whatever like that. And actually, me and Hank was talking about this yesterday, um, on like how somebody would react if, like, how a boomer would react probably in that time if I walked up to them. They'll automatically judge me as like, oh, he's a criminal or something like that. That judgment will already be there just based on how I look, without even talking to me or even seeing who I am or how I am or how I act. And something that Hank said yesterday, you actually shared a story, Hank, with me, and I would love for you to share it on here because it really it really conveys that point of like how we view each other is not based on the color of our skin or what somebody looks like, but their character, how they express themselves, how they carry themselves. So if you would like to share that, that'd be
Hank,
awesome.
go for it.
Yeah, let me see if I can put it in a nutshell, because I can get pretty long when I tell stories. But quite a few years back, it must have been easily 30 years or so ago, I had to go into, I went to a chiropractor's office in an area of South Dade County, which nowadays is known as Miami-Dade. And when I came out of the office there, I was hungry, and there was a Taco Bell, about 2 blocks away. So I left the car where it was and took a walk over there. And when I got out to the sidewalk in front, there was a person of color, a man who was probably 6'3" or 6'4", and he smiled and he said hi, and I could see there was kindness in his eyes. And he said, I'm a little bit down on my luck, and if possible, could you give me a few bucks? I could get something to eat. And I had a brother, who had substance abuse issues, and I knew I probably shouldn't just hand out money to people. But I said to him, well, I don't know if I want to give you money, but I'm going into Taco Bell, and if you want to come in and have a seat with me, I'll buy us both lunch and we can chat for a little bit. And we did. It was a nice lunch, a nice conversation. He was a good guy. He was just a little bit down on his luck, and he was going to go to some job, kind of an office or something afterwards. And the bottom line is this, and this is the punchline of the story. When I left him and he asked me for, a couple bucks to take the bus, to where he was going, and I gave him that. But he said, what really matters to me about what happened today? I said, what was that? He said, it really touches me that you were not afraid of me. And I said, and that really hit me deep. And I said, well, you didn't do anything to make me afraid of you. You didn't act aggressively. You didn't look mean. You didn't, you talked very gently. Why should I be afraid of you? And he said, I'm just used to people being afraid of me because I'm big and I'm black and people just see me that way. I said, no, I was not afraid of you from moment one, because I think I read your body language and saw who you are, more than what you look like. But
Yeah, and I think
that really was a lesson for me, that it really counted to him that I was not afraid of him.
Well, I got from the story, Hank, too, something else too, and it's the idea of I guess that's part of your workshop that you'll be doing, is the idea we need to listen to each other, without, kind of Tyler was alluding to, preconceived notions, whether somebody's race, color, age, whatever. It should just be, we respect each other for whoever they may be, and go from there. And let me ask you the same kind of question, Tyler. We'll switch gears a little bit in terms of forgetting differences, calling boomers and Generation Z, whatever. Talk more in terms of how should people work together, whatever the age, color, religion, you name it. What are some of the things people should do when they just start working together without preconceived notions?
I think it really comes from, again, just commonalities, understanding that we are similar. We're not different. I want to be successful. You want to be successful. That is a commonality. We can work together to make that dream or that desire come to pass for the both of us, because we have a common interest in that. And I think that's where it really starts with boomers and Gen Zs. Is like, I understand that a boomer probably doesn't understand technology how I understand technology, but I understand that boomer has the desire, just like I have the desire, to understand technology and understand new way of thinking about technology, and also thinking about the world that we are living in today. And so I know, me personally, that I can help a boomer or someone of that age bracket to learn technology. And not only can I do something to help a boomer, but a boomer can help me to learn, most likely, more about my history, or maybe more about how to really work to get something that you want. Going back to work ethic, is putting in that drive and that work to do that, is because that's a desire that I have. I want to learn how to do what it takes to get what I know I want. So I think that's really where it starts, is just understanding the commonalities that we have.
If I can ask Hank, same kind of question in terms of some of the things that, if not you, Hank, you being the exception maybe, but other boomers or other people of our age, what are some of the things we can learn from Gen Z folks?
Well, they have a very different way of looking at things because the world is so different. Whereas you and I might look at something, and I'm not talking race here, but we might look at something as being black and white. It only has a right and a wrong, as far as the answer goes. Whereas I've known a number of Gen Z people who they don't see it that way. They see all the permutations in between, and they know somehow that the truth really isn't out here, to the right, and it isn't out to the left, but the truth is somewhere in between. And if you hear the sides out and take all of the factors into consideration, you'll probably come up with something more synergistic that's neither A nor B, and is greater than C. I've learned that from some Gen Z people. One example I want to give you is that the other day I was talking to a Gen Z friend of mine, and I have something called the Home Business Success Community. He said to me, I like your concept, I like your notion, I like what you're doing, but I hate the name. I said, why? He said, well, the name, it's a little bit too long and it doesn't convey what I think you want to convey. I said, what would you call it? He said, I would call it the Work from Home Entrepreneurs. And a little bell in my head went ding, 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 ding. I think he's onto something, because the home business success community, I mean, that doesn't speak maybe as strongly as the work from home entrepreneurs. And he suggested even WFH entrepreneurs. But in my mind, there's that little fear that maybe somebody won't know what WFH means. But he said all the Gen Z people do. So,
Well,
yeah.
Well, another difference I see, and I'd like to get both of your reaction to this, but I'm kind of guilty of it, this, and Hank, you're not, but it's the kind of a fear, Tyler, I have at times of technology, in terms of, and not even technology, I'm stuck, Facebook now is my age, but I'm fighting Instagram and I'm playing with it a little bit, but I don't love Instagram. And by the same token, I don't love learning about it, but I guess I just have to bite the bullet and say, hey, if I want to reach you or other folks, I should get more into Instagram. Yeah. Are you an
Oh
Instagram
yeah.
kind of guy?
Oh yeah. I think you should definitely go on there. And it's really not hard. It's not as hard as made out to be. I know there's a whole lot of different things and stuff on there, but another thing about technology and just our day and age is you can go on YouTube and Google everything now. So that's like another difference right there. But I think most definitely you should go on Instagram though.
Do you learn a lot of stuff from YouTube?
Yes, I learn a lot of stuff from YouTube, but I'm a writer, so I really like to read books. And a lot of the information and stuff that I want to learn is more in books than it is on YouTube. But for some stuff, I go on YouTube for, yeah.
And same question too, in terms of you learning stuff. Are you as Tyler said, a book guy or magazine guy, if they even have magazines, or YouTube, or how do you go about learning stuff?
I think it's kind of a hybrid thing. Some things I get in books, like I bought the book Story Brand by Donald Miller. And I think everybody who's into marketing should study Story Brand by Donald Miller. Well, a lot of it's online, but I like the feel of a book, and I like sometimes to be able to sit down and bond with the book as opposed to the computer. But I get a lot of things from going on Google and going on YouTube. So yeah, there is that. But I think, Blaine, one of the things is to just be bold and forge ahead. I met some girls. I posted this on TikTok, because now I'm talking about TikTok.
Right.
I met some girls at the beginning of the pandemic. I was with my wife in Lowe's, and they worked there. They were in their uniform, but they had some music playing, and they were doing some kind of a dance, the TikTok dance. They were doing all this stuff. Well, being a joker like I am, I snuck in behind them and I started dancing, and I wasn't doing the TikTok dance because I didn't know what it was. I was kind of doing my John Travolta kind of thing. But one of them turned around and thought it was hilarious. But the point I'm making is I got into TikTok and I'm still getting my feet wet in it. But the right kind of post in TikTok sometimes in a day can get me 300 or 400 hits. Whereas on Facebook or even Instagram, I'm lucky if I get 20, 30 hits, even though on Facebook I have a couple thousand people in my circle. But TikTok, I think, is growing, and it's a place really to get the word out there fast. Whether it can convert into business or not is going to remain to be seen, but I'm definitely willing to experiment with that.
If I give you another compliment too, Hank, one of the things that I always admired about you, and I'll have you both talk a little bit about this, but aside from the fact that you're online, you have a presence, you also do a lot of networking. You perhaps do more networking than anybody else I know. I don't know, Tyler, if you met Hank this way, but I think that's the first time I met you at a networking event you had invited me to. And talk, if you would, a little bit about the importance of that, and the importance, then I'll have Tyler react to it as well, for all levels of people. But even though we have TikTok, we have all these other online things as well, you're still a big networking guy, I know. How important is that?
Well, that's important for people who want to have local business because, and sometimes it can even expand beyond local business because people know people who don't live in the area, for example. But building relationships, relationship marketing, Blaine, you and I have talked about this before. Relationship marketing is very, very important because there's three factors that you should have with people. They should know you, they should like you, and they should trust you. And you build that by being at networking events, by showing up consistently. You get them to like you by being kind and, applying your platinum rule, which, I won't really go too much into that right now, except treat others the way they want to be treated. And by also shouting out good things about them. Whenever you find something good about somebody and you share that at a networking event, but from the heart, sincerely, don't be like, what was his name on Leave It to Beaver, who always was, he was always ingratiating, but it was fake. But in other words, the relationships that you develop are very, very important because even though you might not ever do specific business with somebody that's in that room at a networking event, but if you go on a monthly basis to a certain networking event, they know, oh, that's Hank. He can build these kind of websites, or he could write a press release, or he could do my monthly newsletter. But even if they don't need it, they go to a lot of groups themselves and they hear somebody say, hey, who could write a monthly newspaper for me? Not newspaper, newsletter for me. Well, I know, like, and trust this guy named Hank, and here's his number. So that is very important. And it's also very important to just be out there among people because this electronic thing, it does not, it doesn't replace being with people one-on-one.
Well, as I call it, I use the term marketing is high touch, not high tech. You can have all the high techs you want, but I'll go back to Tyler on that as well. In terms of your feeling, Tyler, about networking, and aside from just doing your electronic stuff, how important is it for you to get into the community or meet with people on a one-on-one basis in what you do?
It's really important. I call it authentic relationship. Is because with technology and social media, people can fake the funk. So trying to network on social media is kind of like shooting fish in a barrel. Like it's really, you don't know what you're gonna get because people can put on this funk, put on this persona, and then when you meet them in real life, they're just a whole bunch of crap. So I think networking in person is really important. And from my experience of just starting getting into networking, meeting people in person is first impression is everything. So when you can come and talk to a person, just directly and in front of you, you can it really helps you to be more yourself and be more you and try not to put on persona, and it also allows you to be authentic, create an authentic relationship with that person, instead of just doing it behind a device to where you got all the auto corrects and everything like that, and you can be all explicit and everything like that. I think the beauty of networking is just being real authentic, and you get to see you know, you get to see every single part when you network with somebody, because sometimes you probably may forget what to say about your business, but it's not like a belittling thing, is because we're human. And I think with the technology things, we try and make things so perfect. It's because we can do that with the technology, but I just love the natural aspect of networking. Yeah.
Tyler, a final question, if I can. If somebody wants to get in touch with Tyler Lewis, what's the best bet?
Follow me on Instagram, Tyler_Lewis 2K. That's my Instagram. You can follow me there. And then my Facebook is Miles Lewis. And yeah, you can also follow me and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Mindcast Life. And yeah.
Okay, so they can track you down. Hank, I'll ask you two questions, actually. First one, I just asked Tyler, if somebody wants to get hold of you, what's the best bet?
Okay, well, you can always send me an email at Hank@HankEder, EDER.com, Hank@HankEder.com. My Facebook, I'm Hank Eder. Instagram, I'm Hank Eder. I might be on TikTok, Hank ATAP, which stands for all things, not TikTok, Twitter,
Instagram.
Twitter, Hank ATAP, which stands for all things are possible. And I am on Instagram, but you know, if you look up Hank Eder, you'll find me on all of these things.
And it's funny, Tyler, what Hank's talking about is something we discuss, and that's one of the things I talked about. He alluded to the platinum rule, and it's the idea, what's the best way to reach Hank Eder or Tyler Lewis? You just have to ask the person, so rather than guess it, don't just assume like Hank and I are still email guys, or I'm an email guy, Hank, you're a messenger guy, whatever. Just ask the people. And so I'll ask you, Hank, a final question. If people want to get to meet both the two of you actually in person, repeat again the information on this upcoming gig you're going to be having.
Okay, that's February 21st at 5:30 at Focal Point Coworking, which is 125 Lexington Avenue, which is right outside of downtown Asheville, behind the Orange Peel. It's on that street behind the Orange Peel. Oh, it's called Hilliard Avenue.
Okay, that's it. Yeah.
The entrance is on Hilliard Avenue, even though the address is 125 South Lexington. Members of the Focal Point Coworking are free, but there's a $5 ticket charge for people who are not members of Focal Point Coworking.
Okay, if people get to this, whether they're Generation Z or Boomers or any other kind of thing, they can actually get to meet the two of you in person. Can you imagine that? So if you like what you heard today, and I hope you did, best bet is to meet with Hank and Tyler coming up. Thank you for both being my guests on this Blaine's World podcast. And also thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti, and we hope to see you in person and online in the near future. Thanks, guys.
You're
Absolutely.
welcome. Thank you.